Hey, welcome. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, this can't be it? There has to be more. Well, today you're going to dive into a story that might just change the way you see everything. It's not a lecture, it's not a boring documentary. It's a journey. A journey of three ordinary people who dared to change their lives by learning from one of the most extraordinary minds alive, Elon Musk. And trust me, what happens in this story will surprise you, inspire you, and maybe even push you to start your own transformation. So stay with me, because by the end, you won't see life the same way again. It was a cold evening in a small town in Ohio. The streets were quiet, lit only by the orange glow of tired streetlights. Inside a worn-down factory, Jake, just 27, wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the clock. Another 12-hour shift, another day spent building parts he didn't care about. His dreams felt distant, like stars hidden behind heavy clouds. Across town, Emily, a 32-year-old teacher and single mother, sat at her kitchen table surrounded by bills. Her son, Daniel, slept in the next room, clutching a small toy rocket. Emily looked at the overdue notices, fighting the weight in her chest. She wanted to give her boy hope, to show him a future beyond limits. But how could she, when she barely kept the lights on? Meanwhile, in a glossy office in New York City, Marcus, 40 years old and successful by every external measure, stared out of his skyscraper window. His suit was sharp, his salary enormous, but his reflection revealed emptiness. "Is this it?" he whispered. "All these years? For what?" The money hadn't filled the void. If anything, it had made the silence louder. That night, in three very different places, their paths quietly crossed. On Jake's cracked phone screen, on Emily's old laptop, and on Marcus's massive TV, the same clip began to play, an interview with Elon Musk. Musk's voice echoed, "If something is important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure." Jake leaned forward, goosebumps rising on his arms. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, for the first time in years, felt his heart race. The words lingered like a spark in dry wood. Each of them, though strangers, felt the same impossible question growing louder inside. What if I could change everything? Jake shut off the video and whispered into the silence of his room, "I need to find out how." And with that, their lives began to shift, though none of them knew it yet. 2 weeks later, the city of New York buzzed with its usual chaos. Horns blaring, crowds weaving through the streets, lights flashing from every corner. In a modest conference hall tucked between tall glass towers, a banner read, "Learning from Visionaries." By coincidence, or perhaps fate, Jake, Emily, and Marcus all walked through those doors. Jake had scraped together his last paycheck for a bus ticket. Emily had begged her sister to watch Daniel for the weekend so she could attend. Marcus, restless and searching, came because an old colleague insisted it might change the way he sees things. The seminar began. The speaker told story after story of Elon Musk, sleeping on the Tesla factory floor, risking bankruptcy for SpaceX, ignoring the critics who said his dreams were impossible. Each story carried the same message: extraordinary change demands extraordinary courage. Jake scribbled notes furiously, his eyes burning with energy. Emily felt a mixture of fear and excitement, imagining a future where she could actually inspire her students, and her son. Marcus sat still, but for the first time in years, his mind wasn't on stock prices or quarterly reports. It was on purpose. When the lecture ended, the crowd spilled into the lobby. By chance, the three strangers stood near the same coffee table. Jake, nervously, "Maybe I'm crazy, but I think I need to risk more. I can't keep living the same life." Emily, softly but firmly, "Crazy? No. I think it's the only way to grow." Marcus, after a pause, "Risk? I've been avoiding it all my life. Maybe that's my problem." For a moment, they just looked at each other. Three lives from completely different worlds, suddenly bound by the same unspoken desire, to change. They exchanged numbers, promising to keep in touch. None of them knew how, or even what the next step would look like. But in that crowded lobby, surrounded by strangers, something small but powerful had been born. A pact, a fragile alliance to chase a better future. Later that night, as Emily returned to her hotel, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her son. Just one picture, a crayon drawing of a rocket, with the words, "One day, Mom." She smiled through tears. The spark inside her had just turned into a flame. The following month, life no longer felt the same for Jake, Emily, and Marcus. That spark they had shared in New York kept burning inside them, pushing each toward a choice they could no longer ignore. For Jake, the choice came first. One rainy morning, he walked into the factory where he had spent years of his life. The machines roared, the same gray walls surrounded him, and his supervisor barked the same tired orders. Jake looked around and thought, if I stay here, I'll die with my dreams still trapped inside me. By the end of his shift, he handed in his resignation. That night, in his small apartment, he opened his laptop and began sketching an idea for an online business, something that could solve real problems for people. He didn't know exactly how yet, but for the first time, he felt alive. Emily's moment came a week later. At her school, she watched her students struggle with boredom, their imaginations dulled by endless worksheets. She thought of her son's rocket drawing and knew she had to try. That evening, after Daniel was asleep, she filled out a grant application for an after-school program that would teach kids about science, creativity, and building big dreams. Her hands trembled as she pressed submit. She whispered, "Please, let this work." Marcus faced his leap in the boardroom of his high-rise office. Surrounded by colleagues who only cared about quarterly profits, he felt the emptiness stronger than ever. That day, he sold a large portion of his stock portfolio, not to buy another mansion or sports car, but to invest in a small clean energy startup run by young entrepreneurs. His co-workers called him insane, but Marcus didn't care. For once, he wasn't chasing money, he was chasing meaning. But the leap wasn't smooth. Jake's savings began to disappear faster than he expected. Emily's application was met with silence. Marcus's new partners seemed unsure, their ideas fragile, and whispers spread that he had thrown away his fortune. One late night, the three gathered on a video call, their faces tired but determined. Jake, what if we're just fooling ourselves? Emily, then at least we tried. That's more than most people ever do. Marcus, but what if Musk is right? What if failure is part of the path? They sat in silence, letting the words sink in. For the first time, they felt the weight of risk pressing down, threatening to crush them. The next morning, Jake opened his mailbox to find a thin white envelope from the bank. He tore it open with shaking hands. Loan application denied. His heart sank. Without funding, his dream might be over before it had even begun. He stared at the letter in disbelief, the room spinning around him. The first leap had already met its first wall. The weeks that followed tested every ounce of strength they had. For Jake, the rejection letter from the bank haunted him. His savings were almost gone, and he picked up late-night delivery jobs just to afford groceries. Yet every night, after his shift ended, he sat at his desk coding until his eyes burned. Still, the progress felt painfully slow. Was he building something real, or just chasing a fantasy? Emily faced her own battle. Her grant application had been denied with a cold, impersonal email. At school, her students slouched over worksheets, their eyes dull. One afternoon, her son Daniel tugged her sleeve and asked softly, "Mom, why do you keep failing?" The words pierced her heart. She wanted to scream, to give up, but instead she held him close and whispered, "Because if I stop trying, the dream dies." Meanwhile, Marcus was drowning in humiliation. His clean energy startup partners had betrayed him, using his money recklessly and leaving him with nothing but embarrassment. His old colleagues mocked him behind his back, calling his choices a midlife crisis. He stared at the city skyline from his apartment window and felt like he had been stripped of everything, his wealth, his pride, his certainty. The three of them met again in New York, this time in a small cafe. Their faces carried exhaustion, their voices heavy. Emily, Musk slept on the factory floor. Maybe we need to get uncomfortable too. Marcus, uncomfortable? I've lost half my savings. My name is a joke. Jake, then we keep going. If he could survive rockets exploding, we can survive this. Silence filled the air. Despite the pain, none of them wanted to quit. As they sat there, Emily's phone buzzed with a new email notification. She glanced at the screen, her eyes widening. It was an invitation to a private lecture, an exclusive event where Elon Musk himself would be speaking. Her heart raced. She looked at Jake and Marcus and whispered, "Maybe this is the sign we've been waiting for." The auditorium in California glowed with anticipation. Hundreds of people filled the seats, buzzing with excitement. Jake, Emily, and Marcus sat together near the middle row, their nerves on edge. For weeks they had been stumbling through darkness. Now, they were about to hear from the man whose words had first sparked their journey. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. Then, walking calmly onto the stage, was Elon Musk himself. He wore no suit, no polished armor of a billionaire, just a black t-shirt and jeans. Yet the room seemed to shift with his presence. He began not with numbers or charts, but with a story. Musk's voice steady, reflective. When we started SpaceX, everyone said it would fail. The first 3 rockets exploded. Each time, people laughed louder. I had enough money for one last launch. If that failed too, it was over. But sometimes, you only need one success to change everything. The room leaned in. Musk spoke of sleepless nights on the factory floor, of risking every dollar he had, of being told no again and again. Musk, people think I chase money. But money was never the goal. The goal is impact. If you're not doing something that matters, really matters, you're wasting your short time on Earth. Jake's chest tightened. Impact, he thought. Not money. Emily blinked back tears, imagining her son standing on a stage one day, inspired because she refused to quit. Marcus felt something shift deep inside him. After years of chasing wealth, he finally understood why it had left him empty. When the lecture ended, the crowd erupted in applause. But for Jake, Emily, and Marcus, the moment was more than inspiring, it was transformational. Outside the hall, their voices trembled with energy. Jake, I've been building for money. That ends today. I'm rebuilding around solving real problems. Emily, my program won't just be after-school care. It'll be a movement for kids to dream bigger. Marcus, and I'll stop chasing profit. I'll use my experience to guide startups with purpose. The night air was electric with possibility. For the first time, they didn't just feel like dreamers. They felt like builders of something bigger than themselves. Just as hope reached its peak, Marcus's phone rang. He frowned at the screen. It was his lawyer. He stepped aside, answering quickly. His face turned pale. What? They're trying to destroy the startup? They can't do that. His old company wasn't finished with him. They were ready to crush everything he had left. Dark clouds gathered over their journey, both literally and figuratively. For Jake, disaster struck first. His website, months of sleepless nights and sacrifice, was hacked. In a single night, everything collapsed. He sat in his dim apartment staring at a blank screen, the code he had poured his soul into reduced to rubble. His chest felt hollow, his dreams slipping through his fingers. Emily faced heartbreak of her own. After gaining momentum with her after-school program, she received an official notice. The grant she depended on was being withdrawn. Her project, the one meant to inspire kids like her son, was suddenly on the edge of death. She held the letter in trembling hands, whispering, "Not again. Please, not again." And for Marcus, the nightmare was even worse. His former company had filed lawsuits against the clean energy startup he had backed, draining his finances and reputation further. In courtrooms and boardrooms, they painted him as reckless, foolish, even unstable. The weight of humiliation crushed him, threatening to silence the small voice that still believed he was on the right path. One night, the three of them gathered on a video call. Their faces were tired, their voices cracked with despair. "Jake, this is impossible. Everything I built is gone." Emily, "No, it's Musk's path. Fail, rebuild, repeat. That's what he did." Marcus, "Easy for you to say. I've lost everything. Money, respect, my name. I'm finished." The screen went silent. For the first time, it felt like their fragile alliance might break apart. Emily closed her laptop and buried her face in her hands. She wanted to quit more than ever. But later that night, as she walked past Daniel's room, she stopped. Her son was sitting on the floor, carefully taping together cardboard pieces. "It's my rocket, Mom," he said proudly. "One day I'm going to fly it." Her throat tightened. Tears welled in her eyes. She knelt beside him, hugging him tightly. In that moment, she understood. If she quit, she wouldn't just be giving up on herself, she'd be teaching her son to give up too. With renewed fire, Emily grabbed her phone and called Jake and Marcus. Her voice was steady this time, unshaken. "Emily, listen to me, we're not finished. Not yet. Failure isn't the end. It's the path. We get up, and we try again. Together." For a long moment, there was silence. Then Jake whispered, "Together." Marcus let out a shaky breath. One more try. The alliance had been tested by fire, and though scarred, it held strong. A year passed, marked not by comfort, but by relentless work. The scars of failure were still visible, but so was something new, resilience. Jake rebuilt his project from scratch. This time, he focused less on flashy ideas and more on solving real problems. He launched an app that helped small businesses automate their deliveries. Slowly, downloads grew, reviews came in, and for the first time, revenue began to trickle in. What once was a dream was becoming real. Emily refused to let rejection bury her vision. She pitched her program again and again, reshaping it until finally a foundation believed in her mission. With the grant secured, she opened a small but vibrant after-school center. Children filled the room with laughter, building cardboard rockets, solar cars, and wild inventions. And when she watched Daniel standing proudly at the front, showing his rocket to the class, her heart swelled. She was not just changing her life, she was changing theirs. Marcus, though scarred from betrayal, leaned into his greatest strength, experience. He began mentoring young entrepreneurs, guiding them through pitfalls he once ignored. One of the startups he coached not only survived but thrived, gaining recognition for clean energy innovation. For the first time in decades, Marcus smiled with genuine pride. Together, they organized a small conference, inviting dreamers and builders to share ideas. The event buzzed with energy, ordinary people standing up to say, "I can change too." But the moment of triumph didn't come without resistance. Marcus's old company, threatened by his rising influence, attempted to sabotage the event. Negative press flooded the internet, trying to paint the trio as frauds chasing impossible dreams. For a brief moment, fear spread like wildfire. Yet instead of crumbling, they fought back. Jake leveraged his app to rally small business owners in support. Emily filled the stage with her student stories, silencing critics with pure inspiration. Marcus spoke directly to the crowd, his voice steady and defiant. "Marcus, we were told to stop, to stay small, to accept failure. But failure didn't end us, it shaped us. And no article, no company, no fear can take that away." The audience erupted in applause. People stood, cheering not just for them, but for themselves, for the idea that change was possible, no matter where you started. As the conference ended, the three stood together backstage, exhausted but victorious. Jake whispered, his voice trembling with emotion, "We did it, but this is just the beginning." Months later, life looked nothing like it once did. The struggles, the failures, the sleepless nights, they had forged something unbreakable. Jake now walked into a modest but buzzing office where a small team worked beside him. His app, once just an idea scribbled on paper, had become a tool used by thousands of small businesses. He no longer carried the weight of hopelessness, he carried purpose. Emily's after-school program had expanded across several schools. What started with cardboard rockets and small experiments had grown into a movement that encouraged children to dream boldly. Watching her son Daniel help younger kids build projects filled her with pride. She wasn't just a teacher anymore, she was a builder of futures. Marcus had found peace not in wealth, but in legacy. He became a respected advisor to startups that shared his vision of ethical innovation. The man who once chased profit now chased impact, and in doing so, discovered a joy money had never given him. One evening, the three of them reunited at the same little diner in New York where they had once sat as strangers. The air was different now, lighter, warmer. They laughed more easily, their eyes brighter, their spirits unshaken. Jake. Funny, isn't it? We thought we were learning from Musk. But really, we were learning from each other. Emily. And from failing. Again and again. Failure didn't destroy us, it made us. Marcus. Failure wasn't the end. It was the path. They raised their glasses, not in a toast to money or fame, but to courage, resilience, and vision. Outside, the city moved as it always had, and somewhere out there, Elon Musk continued chasing Mars, reinventing industries, and inspiring millions. But for Jake, Emily, and Marcus, his greatest impact wasn't a rocket or a car. It was the proof that ordinary people could change their lives completely if they dared to risk, fail, and rise again. The night ended with laughter, hope, and a quiet certainty that their story wasn't closing. It was only beginning. Final line: the future doesn't belong to the genius or the billionaire, it belongs to those brave enough to believe. Wow, if you're still here, thank you so much for watching until the end. This story wasn't just about Elon Musk, it was about us, about you, about the courage to fail, rebuild, and rise stronger. If this inspired you even a little, I have something special for you. There's a link right here on the channel that will help you develop the millionaire mindset, because success starts here, in your mind. So, if you want to keep growing, click that link, and don't forget to hit subscribe. More stories, more inspiration, and more transformation are waiting for you. Remember, the future doesn't belong to those who wait, it belongs to those who dare. Rock it.